Hey everyone, this is Tom Seymour from VHS Massacre 2. So a lot of the music that you're going to hear throughout the podcast is actually part of the new score for VHS Massacre 2 by composer Timothy Kulig. So I hope you enjoy it. Thanks. Hey everyone, welcome to VHS Massacre Radio. I'm your host Tom Seymour. It's been a hot minute and there's some cool new releases. I saw a trailer for a crazy movie called Six Sock Monsters from Outer Space. So Troma acquired this film. It's an Italian film, and it looks to be sort of a marriage of like puppetry and green screen and some sort of lo-fi, and looks to be kind of hilarious. So here are some sounds from Six Sock Monsters from Outer Space, aka Dulcia Extrema.
Li miseriaccia di suprastata ci può scommetterlo monocoli.
Aspetta che ti levo la maschera!
Oh!
Quale problema siete riusciti a individuare?
È già tutto rientrato. Una bruciatura al naso.
So anyway, yeah, probably hard to tell exactly what's going on, but sounds hilarious. I'm sure you could tell. So this is a cool development for Troma. And the next thing I am very excited about is there's a film called Mutant Blast, which is apparently a Portuguese film. It's coming out through Troma. It's got some great soundtrack, great gore. There's this sort of bodybuilder, Arnold Terminator type warrior. It looks to be some sort of zombie type thing, but hopefully a new twist. But again, it has this kind of 80s retro feel, so it's kind of fun. Recently, I was watching a movie called A Girl Walks Home Alone, which is made by an Iranian-American filmmaker. Looks to be, or rather, it's a really interesting film. Black and white vampire film, sort of shot in this. It's sort of shot in California. So they sort of create this mythology. It's sort of an oil town. Where's this? There's a female vampire who wears burqa and goes around killing people, and then falls in love. And anyway, it's pretty crazy, pretty interesting. That one's called A Girl Walks Home Alone. Definitely worth checking out. Okay, so in regard to the VHS Massacre 2 documentary, so that's the follow-up to the VHS Massacre, which is a bestseller for Troma Entertainment, which was, for me, was a big victory given that independent film was really struggling right now. So that was that meant a lot to me, and it occurred to me that I should make a sequel, because what else did I have going on, really? I had made 9 feature narratives, or rather 8 feature films that were narratives before I did VHS Massacre. And I just kind of, I think, gone as far as I could, with some of the micro budgets I've been working with. So documentary seemed to be a good way for me to keep going and to keep creating. Because as you know, most artists, they have to do their work, They have to feel normal and navigate life. They kind of have to create. So for me, this is just an extension of it. But it meant a lot that people connected with the documentary, including James Rolfe, the Angry Video Game Nerd, who I've been watching his stuff for years. Like, honestly, his videos have got me through some just sort of, bad times. When I'm feeling low, I could put those videos on, and they really did cheer me up, and they continue to do so. He's got a new video with Gilbert Godfrey, who I think is one of the best living stand-up comedians. Hilarious video. It's about that name that keeps popping up, Fred Fucks, in a lot of these old Nintendo games and whatnot. So I would definitely check that out. But so in any case, I reached out to him. I reached out to several times over the years, but this is a guy who's got, just his YouTube channel alone has 1.5 billion views. over 2 million subscribers just on YouTube. So basically one of the largest personalities on the internet, period. And but over the years I've been reaching out to him, even offering my editing services and stuff like that, or I sent him a few crazy movies I'd made over the years. But when I was working on VHS Massacre 2, I reached out to him, and he actually was able to get back to me. I was like, this is amazing. This is a really busy guy, And so we were able to work together. So he's actually in VHS Massacre 2. And I think that mostly has to do with the fact that he is a Troma fan. He's a fan of Lloyd Kaufman and all the Troma films. So somehow he must have stumbled across VHS Massacre and checked it out. So, that meant a lot to me, actually. Because you never know where your work is going. You never know if it matters. You don't know whose eyes are on you. And so it was a very good feeling, So anyway, in regard to VHS Massacre 2, I had a rough cut that was about 100 minutes, and I have it down to 89 minutes, which is starting to feel better, starting to feel more watchable and more refined. So I'm going to keep working on that, keep chipping away at it, and hopefully it's going to be a really solid watch. And that's my goal. You cannot bore the independent film audience because they will not give you the benefit of the doubt. They just don't have the time for it. It's not like in the 90s where people had a real appetite for micro-budget feature films were actually a cool thing to seek out. You wanted to see what a filmmaker could do with limited resources. So it was especially important, especially in the video store era, if you found a low-budget film, you were happy it was there. You're like, oh, let's check this out. Let's see what they can do. Oh, this one, El Mariachi made for $9,000. Clerks made it for $40,000, or Do the Right Thing, I think was $40,000 to $80,000. And you were happy that they existed. But now I think people are just they're inundated with content, and a lot of you could say web videos have done a lot to chip away at the legacy of independent feature films, and the doc focuses on that a little bit in regard to what Amazon Prime and Netflix has done to suppressing royalties for low-budget filmmakers, or just banning films altogether. So anyway, the new documentary I think is really good in that way. So anyway, I'll keep refining it. I have one more interview I want to do with filmmaker Gorman Bashar, who made such B movies as Galactic Gigolo, Psychos in Love, Cemetery High, and went on to be a novelist, and then started doing these documentaries. One was on animal rights, animal abuse laws, called A Dog Named Gucci, which actually was a pretty important documentary. So anyway, recently, for the doc, I started investigating this concept of where is the new gold rush for independent filmmaking. This concept everyone keeps talking about, like we need to break up these media conglomerates. Is that wish thinking? Would it matter? And talking to Lloyd Kaufman, he absolutely feels like breaking up. In 1948, they broke up a lot of these media conglomerates. And they put rules in place that said essentially, like, look, a movie studio can't also then own the movie theaters. And that was the kind of thing they were doing, and in the late 40s, early 50s. And so, if you can imagine now, it's just like, AT&T can own movie studios. It's endless. There's almost no such thing as antitrust or monopoly. It just no one cares. No one's doing anything about it. So that's something we really have to look at, because the reason why places like YouTube and Prime can just suppress independent royalties is because they can get away with it. They're looking at the bottom line. It's not necessarily that they are thinking, God, we really want to destroy these independent, the lucrative aspect of independent filmmaking. It's just that they're unchecked. And so a business is just obliged to make money where they can. So we end up getting screwed, systemically screwed. These companies have common interests. They look at what other people are paying for royalties and they suppress it. So because there's only like 5 or 6 companies, this is essentially what happens. So, but I did look into this thing about creating your own streaming service. So this has been around for a while. I wrote a little blog about it. So for more than a few years, people have actually been able to create their own Roku channels. There's actually web tutorials on how to create your own Roku channel. The thing is, though, I believe you have to have your own server. And so what ends up happening is that you can end up paying out of pocket for to have a server that can stream and things like that. But for years now, people have been able to create their own Roku channels at relatively low cost. At least the creation of them is fairly low. I was experimenting creating one through Vimeo, which I actually did through VHX a few years ago, and I released 2 of my older films. The problem with that is that all that stuff was behind a paywall, which really didn't do well. Like, what the documentary VHS Massacre 2 looks into is this idea that it's much rarer for someone to pay $5 for a film and rent it or buy it that they've never heard of. The place where low-budget indie makes their money is the free streaming, so something like Prime. So if you're going to have a Roku channel, it's a serious problem if there's a paywall. If you have to pay $5 for a movie, it's not going to work. But they do have this option. I think it's referred to as Streamium. And Troma Now, which is Troma Entertainment streaming service, has been working with VHX for some years now. Now, what happened was Vimeo bought VHX. So again, this is consolidation. So, but it does look to be the case where you could start your own streaming channel through Vimeo, and you would pay an initial fee. Like, let's say you pay $100 for an additional 10 hours of streaming, and then what that would allow is you could host several features on there, which is a pretty cool thing. So some of the features that I recently released through this distributor called MVD Group have actually popped up. I can actually see where these movies are popping up. So Everything Moves Alone, Atlanta College Profits, 2 movies I did. One was a drama. One was like Everything Moves Alone was sort of like a Clerks sort of slightly drama thing. And Atlanta College Profits is a weird comic book, really backyard superhero lo-fi thing. But it had a cult following in the video store era. So to these obscure streaming channels, and those who have Roku may actually get a kick out of trying to find obscure streaming channels. But the 24-hour movie channel is now carrying Everything Moves Alone. Other sites like Midnight Pulp is another good independent one. CPTV is another cool free Roku channel. So these end up being additional venues for filmmakers to try to make money. Now, can you actually make a lot of money doing this Roku channel? Okay, I don't think it's a gold rush. I think collectively through MVD, through Amazon Prime, these Roku channels, and then also through ZPTV, I've probably made a few $100s over the past year, I would say. It's better than nothing, and at the end of the day, you really want your work to be out there. So this idea that these Roku channels, these small Roku channels would pop up and carry your work, I think you have to see that as a victory in itself. And you have to look at it in regard to how many eyes are on your work, and is that the most important thing? So for me, that's what matters. And, I think that's the deal is with these independent films. If you could raise money from sources that really do want to contribute to the art, maybe you do a Kickstarter or something, and you could raise a little money and make a feature. And if the investors are sort of okay with that, the concept that, maybe they're getting these little gifts, or they're getting a, signed copy of the movie, and that's enough for them, then I think you can make a go of it as a low-budget independent feature filmmaker. You can put out these films, raise a little money, and keep doing your art, which I think is important. Though I will say that these two VHS Massacre movies, I haven't done any crowdsourcing. So, some of it's been out of pocket, but luckily what I can do is make a very low-budget product, and that's how I'm able to keep going. It's just figuring out ways so I don't spend a fortune. So I think that's the way to do it. As all these streaming sites squabble and pull back properties, like, let's say Disney owns Marvel now, and they pull all their properties away from Netflix, so Netflix won't have any Marvel content. And every, CBS has Star Trek, and they put it behind a paywall. And as all of these streaming channels pull back content to their own separate camps, what happens is the average person might be paying for 3 or 4 streaming sites. Like I pay for Netflix, I pay for Prime, I pay for Shudder. Those are the 3 I'm paying for now. Or I pay for Sling as well, which gives me some cable channels. So that's 4 different sites. I'm unwilling to get more than that. And the truth is, most times I can't find the movie that I actually want to watch on those streaming sites that I already pay for. And as James Richardson said in the documentary, this gets really annoying. So how do you actually do something about it? Well, one of the best ways to ensure that you can watch a movie when you want to watch it is to purchase physical media. And so, in a way, I know physical media clearly is on the decline. As Sean Phillips said, it's become sort of a collector's market. But hopefully people will awaken to the concept of, if you really want access to that film on a permanent basis, physical media is a really good option. One of my older films, London Betty, I paid for on Amazon Prime. So I actually paid for the HD version permanent. So I didn't rent it, I paid for it. Well, they yanked that title off, along with thousands of other titles. So I just lost that movie. They just deleted it, right? So they didn't ask anyone, they just deleted it. So I paid for it, but I no longer have it, okay? But luckily, I have DVD and Blu-ray copy. Physical media may retain some of the market because of the greed of these conglomerates. Well, that's about it for this VHS Massacre. I appreciate anyone who has interest in this, and stay tuned. We'll have more news as it goes on. Currently, Tim Kulig is scoring VHS Massacre 2. So again, the music that you've been listening to throughout the podcast is by composer Tim Kulig for the new VHS Massacre 2 documentary. So let's hear one final tune.